Hey there, and welcome to Brada Tales. Tonight, we bring you a chilling collection of horror stories set against the soothing sound of rain. Before we dive into suspense, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. If these stories send shivers down your spine, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get comfortable, let the fear slowly take over, and tell us if you enjoy this kind of storytelling. Now sit back and relax, we're about to begin. Have you ever waited for something that never comes? As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood alone on the crumbling platform of Hudson Station. The air was thick with a palpable stillness, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves in the distant trees. I glanced around, hoping to spot another soul, but the emptiness echoed back my thoughts, amplifying my unease. The station was a ghost of its former self, paint peeling from the walls, the wooden benches worn down by time. It felt as if the very bricks were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. I shivered, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. I was waiting for the last train, but with each passing moment, doubts crept in. The ticket I held felt heavier, as if it bore the weight of the unsaid, the unknown. I could almost hear whispers in the shadows, a soft murmur that sent shivers down my spine. Was it just the wind? Or was there something more? As I paced the platform, I noticed a flicker at the edge of my vision. A shadow darted between the old iron columns. I stopped, straining to see. Nothing, just the fading light casting long, haunting shapes. Yet the sensation of being watched lingered, prickling at my skin. My name is Ethan, and I had come to this forsaken station seeking closure. I had lost someone dear, and the idea of a last train, the final journey, felt like a twisted promise. A way to escape the grief that chained me. But now, standing there, I felt more like a trapped animal than a seeker of solace. An unsettling noise broke through the silence. A low, mournful sound, almost like a train whistle but distorted, warped. My heart raced. I turned toward the sound, hoping it was a sign. A glimmer of hope. But as the darkness deepened, so did my anxiety. I could sense the night closing in, thick and suffocating. The air turned stale, heavy with an unfamiliar scent. It was sweet yet rancid, like decaying flowers. The smell gnawed at my senses, pushing me further into a state of panic. I could feel it rising, clawing its way up from my stomach to my throat. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my breath. Just the last train, I reminded myself. Just the last train. But my mind betrayed me, swirling with memories and fears. What if it never came? What if I was meant to be here forever? When I opened my eyes, a flickering light appeared at the end of the platform. My heart leaped. Was it the train? Hope battled with dread as the light grew brighter, revealing a shadowy form. The sound of wheels grinding against the tracks echoed, pulling me closer. The train emerged from the darkness, its form monstrous and otherworldly. The carriages were not what I expected, glistening black like obsidian, reflecting the fading light. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the moment. I felt a strange compulsion to step forward to board, yet something held me back. There were no windows, no visible doors. Just an unsettling sense of invitation. I felt a hand on my shoulder. No, not a hand, but a whisper of something brushing past me, cold and fleeting. My heart thundered in my chest as I turned, half expecting to see someone behind me, but the platform was empty. Then came the sound of laughter, distant and haunting. I felt a chill race down my spine. I had to leave. The impulse surged through me, yet my feet remained rooted in place. The train was here. The last train. As the train's whistle pierced the air again, sharper this time, I felt the ground tremble beneath me. The shadows seemed to stretch, twisting and curling like dark tendrils. The air thickened and the world blurred at the edges, reality slipping away. And then, without warning, the train doors opened. An invitation, a promise. I felt the pull, the allure of the unknown. Would I find what I was looking for, or would I lose myself forever? A final decision loomed before me, but the darkness beckoned. I took a deep breath, heart racing, and stepped forward into the void. The moment I stepped onto the train, an overwhelming sensation enveloped me. The air inside felt charged, electric, as if I had crossed a threshold into another realm. The darkness consumed everything, and yet there was an eerie illumination emanating from somewhere deep within the train, faint, pulsing light that danced along the walls like fireflies trapped in glass. I hesitated, heart pounding. The door slid shut behind me with a soft hiss, sealing me inside. The sound was both comforting and terrifying, like a lullaby sung by a creature with sharp teeth. I was alone, yet I could feel the presence of others, invisible passengers waiting in the shadows. I glanced down the narrow aisle, its length obscured by a thick fog that clung to the floor. It smelled of damp earth and forgotten dreams. "Hello," my voice trembled, swallowed by the silence that seemed to wrap around me. No response. I took a tentative step forward, the floor creaking beneath me, echoing my trepidation. Each footfall felt like a heartbeat, a reminder of my vulnerability. As I moved deeper into the train, I noticed the compartments lining the sides. Each door was slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of shadowed figures within. The silhouettes shifted, indistinct and hazy. I could hear whispers, hushed tones that danced just out of reach. My mind raced, trying to decipher the language of the unseen. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the carriage, carrying with it a chorus of voices that sent a shiver down my spine. They spoke in a cacophony of tones, some pleading, others mocking. The words twisted in my mind, melding together into an unintelligible hum. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. I pressed my back against the wall, seeking solace in the familiar texture of the cold metal. Then one voice broke through the noise, a child's laughter, light and carefree. I felt a rush of warmth wash over me, a stark contrast to the darkness. It was a sound that conjured memories of innocence, of joy. My heart clenched. I moved toward the nearest compartment, drawn by the sound. I peered inside. The compartment was empty, save for a single tattered toy, an old stuffed bear, its button eyes glinting in the dim light. I reached out to touch it, but the moment my fingers brushed its fur, a vision flashed before my eyes. I was standing in a sunlit park, laughter ringing in the air. Children ran in circles, chasing one another, their faces alight with joy. In the center, a girl with braided hair clutched the very same bear, her smile radiant. My heart ached, a sharp pang of nostalgia mixed with loss. And then the vision shattered. The laughter morphed into cries, the bright colors faded into gray. I stumbled back, gasping, the memory slipping through my fingers like sand. The laughter was gone, replaced by the whispers that filled the train. I realized then that the darkness was not just an absence of light, but a presence, hungry and waiting. I turned to leave the compartment, but as I stepped back into the aisle, I froze. The shadows had shifted. They coalesced into shapes, figures emerging from the fog. I felt their eyes on me, watching, waiting. Fear coursed through me, cold and sharp. My instinct screamed to run, to escape this claustrophobic nightmare. But the train lurched suddenly, sending me stumbling forward. The movement was jarring, disorienting. I steadied myself against the wall, heart racing. The shadows flickered like candle flames, revealing distorted faces etched with sorrow and rage. I couldn't make out their features, but the emotions were clear, an entire spectrum of despair. "Why are you here?" one figure whispered, its voice barely above a breath. I glanced up and the eyes bore into me, dark and fathomless. "I am waiting for the last train," I stammered, though even I wasn't sure what I meant. Was I waiting for a train or something deeper? "You should not have come," another voice chimed in, hollow and echoing. The shadows closed in, circling around me, an ominous dance of despair. I could feel the weight of their collective grief pressing down on me. Each second stretched, and I could almost hear the tick of a clock, the countdown to something inevitable. Panic rose in my throat. "I need to get off this train," I shouted, but the words felt empty, swallowed by the darkness. As if responding to my plea, the train shuddered violently. The shadows recoiled, retreating to the edges, and for a moment I could see the door at the far end of the carriage, illuminated by a sliver of light. "Oh, damn!" I bolted forward, adrenaline surging. The figures shrieked, their cries echoing in a cacophony of anguish. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I could feel the shadows reaching for me, their cold fingers brushing against my skin as I ran. With every step, the air thickened and the light grew dimmer. My heart raced. I was almost there. Just a little further. The door loomed ahead, tantalizingly close. But as I reached for the handle, a voice pierced the air, soft, almost a whisper. "You can't escape. We are all connected." I hesitated, the weight of those words heavy in my mind. What did they mean? What connection did I share with these lost souls? Before I could process it, the door burst open, and I was thrown into the blinding light. The world outside was stark and bright, a contrast to the suffocating darkness I had left behind. I stumbled forward, disoriented. But the relief was short-lived. As I turned, the train began to fade into the distance, the figures dissolving into the fog. Their voices echoed behind me, a haunting melody of sorrow. I was free, yet I felt their weight clinging to me, an unshakable bond. And as the train vanished from sight, I realized I had only taken the first step into a much darker journey. The blinding light slowly dimmed, and I found myself standing on a desolate platform that felt eerily familiar, yet undeniably different. The wooden planks were splintered, and the air was thick with an unsettling silence. I took a moment to catch my breath, my heart still racing from the chaos of the train. Where had I ended up? It looked like Hudson Station, but the atmosphere was distorted, almost warped. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally. I could still hear the echoes of the whispers behind me, lingering like a haunting melody that refused to fade. As I looked around, my surroundings began to shift, the edges of reality blurring. I noticed a faint shimmer in the air, like heat rising from asphalt, warping my perception. My mind raced with questions. Was this another layer of the train's dark magic? Or had I crossed into a realm that existed just outside my understanding? I took a cautious step forward, the wooden boards creaking beneath my weight. Each step felt like a challenge, as if the platform itself was testing my resolve. I strained my ears for any sign of life, but the only sound was the distant rustling of leaves and the soft sighing of the wind. Then I spotted something in the distance, a flicker of movement. A figure stood at the far end of the platform, partially obscured by the fog. My heart raced again, but this time with a mixture of curiosity and dread. Who was it? A survivor. Another lost soul. I approached slowly, my pulse quickening with each step. As I drew closer, the figure became clearer, a woman dressed in tattered clothing, her hair wild and unkempt. She turned toward me, her eyes wide and haunted, as if she had seen things no one should ever witness. Please, you have to help me, she pleaded, her voice trembling. They're coming. Who's coming? I asked, instinctively glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see shadows lurking behind me. She started, but then a look of terror crossed her face. You need to hide. No. Before I could respond, she grabbed my wrist, pulling me toward the edge of the platform. The urgency in her voice sent chills through me, but I was paralyzed with confusion. Who was she? Why was she so afraid? Suddenly the air shifted. A low, resonant sound filled the atmosphere, vibrating through my bones. It was a train whistle echoing in the distance. But it was unlike any sound I had ever heard, deep, mournful, as if it carried the weight of countless lost souls. The woman's grip tightened on my arm, and we ducked behind a decaying bench. Stay quiet, she whispered, her breath shaky. They can sense fear. I felt a cold sweat form on my brow as the sound grew closer, enveloping the platform. I peered around the bench, my heart pounding in sync with the echoing whistle. Shadows loomed in the distance, gathering like storm clouds. It was as if the darkness itself had taken shape, creeping toward us with intent. Then I saw it, a massive train, unlike the one I had boarded before. Its exterior shimmered with an iridescent sheen, shifting colors as it approached, each hue darker than the last. It rolled to a stop, the air thickening with an unnatural energy. The doors slid open with an unsettling slowness, revealing a void that seemed to swallow the light around it. What is that? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the din. The woman's face paled. It's the train that takes you to the other side. But not everyone comes back. Panic surged through me. What do you mean? What happens to them? I don't know, she replied, eyes darting between the train and the encroaching shadows. But once you step aboard, there's no telling where you'll end up. Or if you'll end up at all. The air grew thicker, the shadows pulsating, alive and hungry. The sounds of laughter and cries morphed into a haunting symphony, swirling around us. I could feel the darkness reaching for me, tendrils brushing against my skin like icy fingers. "Ethan," a voice suddenly called out from within the shadows. I turned, heart racing as I recognized it. It was the same child's laughter from the train, that innocent sound that had pierced through the chaos. But now it was twisted, echoing with sorrow. "Ethan, come play." My mind raced. It felt like a trap, an insidious lure that was impossible to resist. But the woman beside me shivered, her eyes wide with fear. "We have to go," she urged, pulling me further away from the platform's edge. "They want you." With every second that passed, I felt the darkness closing in, suffocating me with its presence. The train remained still, doors yawning wide, waiting for another lost soul to step inside. But the whispers grew louder, and I could hear them calling my name, echoing like a siren's song. "I can't stay here," I cried out, my voice cracking. "I need to find a way back." "Then we have to run," she shouted, her resolve hardening. "Follow me." With no time to think, I followed her as she sprinted down the platform, the ground shaking beneath us. The shadows lunged, swirling like a tempest, their whispers morphing into a cacophony of despair. We dashed toward a narrow path leading into the trees, the thick fog curling around us. As we ran, the haunting sound of the train faded into the background, replaced by the desperate rhythm of our hearts. "Where are we going?" I gasped, breathless. "Anywhere but here," she shouted back, determination etched on her face. "We need to find a way out of this nightmare." But the darkness pursued us relentlessly, and I could feel it clawing at my back, hungry and insatiable. I glanced over my shoulder, seeing the shadows gaining ground. The fear clawed at my throat, threatening to choke me. "Faster," she urged, and we pushed ourselves harder, the world around us becoming a blur. Just as I thought we might escape, I felt a cold wind whip past us, and the ground beneath my feet shifted. It felt as though reality was unraveling, the world around us bending and twisting. And then, in a single heartbeat, everything changed. The shadows surged forward, merging into a single, monstrous form, a dark entity that roared with the voices of the lost. My heart raced as I realized there was no escaping this. "We have to face it," I shouted, my voice barely rising above the chaos. "We can't run forever." She nodded, fear sparking in her eyes. "Together, then." As the darkness lunged at us, we stood our ground. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the fear mixing with a strange sense of determination. Whatever this force was, I was ready to confront it. In that moment, I understood the stakes. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about uncovering the truth hidden in the depths of this nightmare. I took a deep breath, preparing for the inevitable clash, ready to fight for my existence and for the souls that had been lost before me. The shadows surged forward, coalescing into a nightmarish figure that loomed over us, its form twisting and writhing like smoke caught in a tempest. The air vibrated with an unsettling energy, a low hum that resonated deep within my bones. I could see faces flickering within the darkness, lost souls, their expressions a chaotic mix of fear and desperation. "Stay close," I shouted to the woman beside me, though I could see the fear in her eyes. We had no choice now. We were in this together, facing a terror that defied logic and reason. The entity lunged, a dark wave crashing toward us. I could feel its cold breath on my skin, the weight of despair pressing down like a physical force. Without thinking, I grabbed the woman's hand and pulled her behind me, ready to confront the darkness that sought to engulf us. "Focus," I yelled, my voice barely breaking through the cacophony of whispers and wails. "We have to find a way to fight back." As the shadow closed in, I closed my eyes for a moment, searching for something, anything, that could anchor me. I remembered the child's laughter, the innocence that had slipped away. It felt like a thread of hope in the midst of this chaos. I opened my eyes, determination igniting a fire within me. "Let's stand our ground," I cried. "We are not afraid." The darkness hesitated, its movement faltering. It seemed to pulse, almost as if responding to my defiance. I glanced at the woman, her expression shifting from fear to resolve. "You're right. We can't let it take us." Together we took a step forward, raising our arms in unison. It felt ridiculous, but there was power in that gesture, a unified front against the consuming shadows. The darkness recoiled slightly, as if testing our resolve. "Think of what you want," I shouted, trying to project my thoughts outward. "What do we want from this nightmare?" I could feel her energy merging with mine, the desperation of our situation transforming into something tangible. "I want to find peace," she declared, her voice rising. "I want to break free from this prison of despair." Suddenly, a bright light erupted from within us, illuminating the darkness surrounding us. The entity shrieked, a cacophony of voices rising in anguish. The shadows twisted, fighting against the light that now radiated from our bodies. "Keep going," I urged, feeling the energy grow stronger. "We have to push it back." With each pulse of light, the darkness receded slightly, revealing the path ahead, a narrow tunnel of mist leading deeper into the woods. But the entity thrashed in protest, sending tendrils of shadow toward us, grasping, clawing at our resolve. "Don't let it touch you," I yelled, ducking as a shadow brushed against my arm, cold and biting. "Focus on the light. Focus on hope." We pressed forward, channeling our thoughts into that radiant energy. Images flashed before my eyes, memories of laughter, warmth, and love. I envisioned a world free from this horror, a world where the shadows could no longer reach us. The light surged again, brighter and more intense. I felt it enveloping us, wrapping us in a cocoon of warmth. But the entity was relentless, screeching as it lashed out with newfound fury. It struck at the ground, causing the earth to tremble beneath our feet. "Hold on," the woman shouted, her voice firm against the chaos. "We can't do this. We must." The shadows writhed, retreating slightly as we advanced, but the fight was far from over. I felt exhaustion creeping in, threatening to drain my resolve. "What if it's not enough?" I gasped, struggling to maintain focus. "Then we dig deeper," she cried. "We have to tap into the pain, the grief. Turn it into strength." Suddenly I understood. The shadows were fed by sorrow, by the losses that had haunted us. They thrived on despair. But we could flip that power, use our grief as a weapon against them. "Think of what you've lost," I shouted, channeling my own pain. "I'll use it. I'll use it to break free." I closed my eyes again, feeling the memories surge forth. My childhood, the laughter of friends, the warmth of love lost too soon. I felt a wave of grief wash over me, but this time it was different. Instead of drowning in it, I embraced it, allowing it to fuel the light within me. The woman beside me mirrored my movements, her memories intertwining with mine. I could sense her losses, the ache of abandonment, the sorrow of dreams unfulfilled. Together, we transformed that anguish into a brilliant blaze of light that shattered the darkness. With a deafening roar, the entity shrieked, its form beginning to unravel, the shadows tearing apart at the seams. The air crackled with energy, and the ground shook beneath us. "No, push it back," I shouted, every ounce of my strength focused on that singular goal. The light exploded outward, a wave of brilliance that illuminated the woods. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in horror as they were consumed by the radiance. I could see them dissipating, fading into nothingness. As the last remnants of darkness vanished, I collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The woman fell beside me, equally exhausted, but relief washed over us like a gentle tide. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. "We actually did it." I nodded, a smile breaking through my exhaustion. But even in that moment of triumph, a lingering question gnawed at the edges of my mind. What had we really done? Around us, the world seemed to shift again. The fog began to clear, revealing a path that wound through the trees. Light filtered through the leaves, casting a warm glow on the ground. For the first time since I arrived at Hudson Station, I felt a glimmer of hope. But as we rose to our feet, I could sense that the journey was far from over. The shadows may have been banished for now, but the echoes of what we had faced lingered, reminding us that darkness would always exist in some form. "Let's keep moving," I said, my voice steadier now. "There may still be more to uncover." Together we stepped onto the path, the warmth of the light guiding us forward. With each step, I could feel the weight of the past begin to lift, but I knew that whatever lay ahead would test our resolve once more. As we ventured deeper into the woods, I steeled myself for whatever challenges awaited us. There was a purpose now, a need to uncover the truth of this twisted realm and perhaps to find a way home. The path ahead wound deeper into the heart of the woods, the trees arching overhead like ancient sentinels. Their gnarled branches reached out, intertwining with one another, creating a thick canopy that filtered the light into a dappled mosaic on the forest floor. Each step felt deliberate, as if the very earth was alive beneath our feet, breathing in rhythm with our uncertainty. I glanced at the woman beside me, whose name I still didn't know. Her expression was a mixture of determination and trepidation. "What now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the spirits that lingered here. "We find answers," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "There has to be a reason we were brought here." As we moved forward, the sounds of the forest enveloped us, rustling leaves, the distant call of a bird, and the occasional snap of a twig. But there was an undercurrent of tension, a sense of something lurking just out of sight. The whispers, though quieter now, still lingered in the air, echoing warnings of what lay ahead. Suddenly, the path opened into a clearing. In the center stood an old train station, eerily similar to Hudson Station, but in even worse disrepair. The platform was covered in a thick layer of moss, and the once bright paint had faded to dull, peeling remnants. The windows were shattered, and vines crept up the walls like fingers reaching for salvation. "Look," I said, pointing to the station's sign, which read Elysium Station. The name sent a shiver down my spine. It felt loaded with significance, as if it held the key to everything we had experienced. "What does it mean?" she asked, stepping cautiously onto the platform. "I think it's a place," I said, stepping beside her. "A place where lost souls might find peace or be trapped forever." The thought sent a chill through me. I could still feel the weight of the darkness we had fought, lurking just beneath the surface. As we approached the entrance, I noticed something glimmering on the ground. It was a pocket watch, its glass face cracked but still ticking softly, the sound resonating in the stillness. I bent down to pick it up, turning it over in my hands. The inscription on the back read, "Time lost is not forgotten." "Whose is it?" she asked, peering over my shoulder. "I don't know, but it feels important," I replied, tucking it into my pocket. The ticking seemed to synchronize with my heartbeat, a reminder of the time that pressed on us. Together we stepped through the station's doors, the creaking sound echoing in the hollow space. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Old benches lined the walls, their upholstery worn and tattered, as if they had borne witness to countless farewells and reunions. "Do you feel that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What?" I replied, straining to listen. "It's like a pulse. A heartbeat," she said, stepping further into the station. I closed my eyes, trying to tune in. At first I felt nothing, just the echo of our footsteps on the wooden floor. But then it came, a faint vibration, almost imperceptible, a rhythm that resonated within the walls. It was as if the station itself was alive, breathing in sync with our presence. "This place, it's connected to everything," I murmured, opening my eyes. "To the train, to the darkness." Suddenly a cold breeze swept through the station, and the temperature dropped. I shivered, my breath forming a mist in the air. "We should move," I said, scanning the room for anything unusual. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from a darkened corner of the station. My heart raced as I turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows. It was a man, disheveled and gaunt, his eyes wide with fear. "Please help me," he cried, stumbling toward us. "They're coming for me. I don't want to go back." "Who are you?" I demanded, stepping in front of the woman protectively. "My name is Daniel," he gasped, desperation etched on his face. "I was here before, trapped by the shadows. They won't let me leave." "Trapped," the woman echoed, her brow furrowing. "How?" "I don't know," he said, trembling. "I tried to escape, but they know my fears. They feed on them. I thought I could find peace here, but it's just another trap." I felt a pang of sympathy for him. "How can we help you?" I asked, my voice softer. "Destroy the heart of Elysium Station," he replied urgently. "It's what binds the shadows to this place. You must find it before it's too late." "Where is it?" I asked, my mind racing. "Down below," he whispered, pointing to a staircase shrouded in darkness. "But you have to be careful. The shadows will try to stop you. They'll use your fears against you." Fear gripped my heart again, but there was no turning back now. "We can do this," I said, glancing at the woman beside me. "We've already faced darkness. We can face it again." Daniel shook his head. "You don't understand. The shadows are cunning. They'll turn your memories against you. You must remain strong. The woman nodded, determination in her eyes. We're ready, she said, her voice steady. We have to try. Very well, Daniel said, stepping back, his expression a mix of hope and dread. But be warned. Once you descend, there may be no way back. You might discover truths you're not ready to face. With a deep breath, I led the way to the staircase. Each step downward felt heavier, as if the weight of the past pressed against us, threatening to crush our resolve. The air grew colder, the whispers of the shadows growing louder, echoing my deepest fears. As we reached the bottom, the darkness enveloped us, swallowing the light. I could feel the pulse of the station grow stronger, reverberating through the stone walls like the heartbeat of a beast. Stay close, I urged, grasping the woman's hand tightly. We can't let them isolate us. The path opened into a vast chamber, its walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and writhe in the dim light. In the center lay a pulsating orb of darkness, the heart of Elysium Station. It throbbed with energy, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. There it is, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The heart. But as I stepped forward, a cold laughter filled the chamber, resonating from the shadows that clung to the walls. You think you can destroy it, a voice taunted, dripping with malice. You're just children playing with forces beyond your understanding. I felt a surge of dread, the shadows closing in. We're not afraid, I shouted, though my voice trembled. We will end this. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of torment and despair. Face your fears, then. Show me your pain. Suddenly, the shadows erupted around us, morphing into twisted forms that mirrored our deepest anxieties. I saw figures from my past, faces of loved ones lost, memories of betrayal and sorrow. Each shadow reached for me, grasping, clawing at my mind. Ethan, the shadows cried, their voices mingling with my own memories. You can't escape us. But as the darkness surged, I remembered the light we had created. No, I shouted, pushing back against the tide of fear. You don't control me. I choose to fight. Beside me, the woman raised her arms, channeling her own memories, images of love, laughter, and resilience. Together, we forged a barrier of light against the encroaching shadows, a force born of our defiance. Together, I cried, feeling our energies intertwine, pushing against the darkness. The shadows writhed, screaming as the light engulfed them, illuminating the chamber in a brilliant glow. With every ounce of strength, we pressed forward, aiming for the pulsating heart that fueled the darkness. We could feel its power, a coldness that threatened to pull us under, but we fought against it. Now, I shouted, and with a final surge, we struck the heart, channeling all our pain, our memories, and our hope into a single blow. The orb shattered, a blinding light erupting from within, consuming the shadows in a radiant explosion. The chamber trembled, the walls vibrating with the force of our unity. As the light spread, I felt the darkness dissipate, the shadows screaming in agony as they were torn apart. We had done it, but as the echoes of their cries faded, I knew this battle was only the beginning. The journey ahead would test us even further. Together, we emerged from the chamber, blinking in the bright light of a new dawn, a glimmer of hope piercing the darkness that had held us captive for too long. And though the shadows may have receded, I felt the weight of the journey ahead, a deeper understanding of the darkness within and the strength we would need to face it. What if the echoes of lost love could be captured in a haunting melody? In the small, quiet town of Bellevue, Louisiana, whispers of the past lingered in the air like the sweet scent of magnolias. The townspeople often spoke of the old house at the end of Maple Street, a decaying relic of a bygone era where a grand piano sat in the dusty parlor, untouched and forgotten. It was said that on still nights, when the moon hung low, the notes of a sorrowful tune could be heard drifting from the house, wrapping around the trees and drawing the curious closer. I was new to Bellevue, having moved here seeking solace from my own heartache. My name is James, and I had left everything behind, my job, my friends, and the memories that haunted me. The town was small enough for me to blend in, yet strange enough to stir something deep within me. But the stories of the old house intrigued me. They tugged at my curiosity and my sorrow. One evening, drawn by an inexplicable pull, I ventured toward the house. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced along the cracked pavement. The house loomed ahead, its once white paint now a muted gray, peeling and fading. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something sweet yet decayed. As I stepped onto the porch, the wood creaked beneath my weight. A chill ran down my spine, but I brushed it off, chalking it up to the cool evening breeze. I could hear it then, the soft, melancholy notes of a piano drifting through the air. It was beautiful and heart-wrenching, like a love letter never sent. My heart raced, and I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Pushing the door open, I was met with a heavy silence that hung in the air. Dust motes floated in the faint light that streamed through the grimy windows. The parlor was filled with shadows, but the piano stood proudly in the center of the room, its keys glinting in the twilight. I stepped closer, drawn by the music that echoed in my mind. But there was no one here. Just the piano, the dust, and the unsettling feeling that I was being watched. My skin prickled, and I glanced over my shoulder. The room felt alive, the air charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. A portrait hung on the wall, an old photograph of a woman in mourning attire. Her eyes seemed to follow me as I moved, filled with a sorrow that resonated with my own. Who was she? What stories did this house hold? As I approached the piano, the music grew louder, wrapping around me like a familiar embrace. I reached out to touch the keys, and the moment my fingers brushed against the cold ivory, the music stopped. A heavy silence descended, pressing against my ears. I pulled my hand back, my heart pounding. Had I imagined it? I glanced at the portrait again. The woman's expression seemed to change, morphing from sadness to something deeper, longing perhaps. It sent a shiver down my spine. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling in the stillness. "Is anyone here?" Silence answered me. I took a step back, unsure of myself. The air felt thicker now, charged with an energy that felt both inviting and dangerous. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears, drowning out any rational thought. With a deep breath, I turned to leave, but the piano called to me, its presence undeniable. I took one last look at the room and the portrait before stepping outside. As I descended the porch steps, I could have sworn I heard the piano begin to play again, a soft, sorrowful melody drifting into the night. I walked home, the melody haunting me. It was more than just music. It felt like a call, a plea from the past. Little did I know my connection to the old piano and its sorrowful tune would lead me down a path I never anticipated, a journey into the depths of loss, love, and the lingering echoes of those who had come before. As I lay in bed that night, the melody replayed in my mind, intertwining with memories of my own heartache. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was meant to uncover the truth hidden within those notes. Something was waiting for me in that old house, and I knew I would return. The sun rose slowly the next morning, casting a warm golden light over Bellevue. But as I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, my mind was still tangled in the haunting melody from the night before. It felt like a thread pulling me toward the old house, weaving a story that demanded to be told. I couldn't shake the image of the woman in the portrait, her eyes filled with a deep sorrow. Who had she been? What had she lost? Each sip of coffee only deepened my resolve. I needed to go back to uncover the secrets hidden within the walls of that old house. After breakfast, I gathered my things, a flashlight, my notebook, and a camera, and set out again. The air was crisp, and the sounds of the town waking up surrounded me, but all I could think about was the silence of the old house. As I approached the property, the familiar chill danced along my spine. The house stood like a sentinel against the bright blue sky, its dilapidated structure somehow both beautiful and eerie. I hesitated at the gate, the rusty hinges creaking as I pushed it open. Stepping onto the porch felt like crossing into another world. I paused to gather my thoughts before entering. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and I was immediately enveloped by the musty smell of old wood and dust. The parlor was just as I had left it, but the atmosphere felt different, thicker, almost electric. The piano, silent and imposing, sat in the center, waiting for me. I approached it cautiously, feeling the weight of my curiosity and apprehension. This time I took a moment to examine the piano. Its surface was covered in dust, but the keys were surprisingly clean, as if someone had played it recently. I ran my fingers along the edge, feeling the coolness of the wood. It was a beautiful instrument, even in its dilapidated state, and I felt a connection to it. Then I remembered the portrait. I turned to look at the woman again. This time I noticed more details, the fine lace of her dress, the delicate way her hands rested in her lap, the faint hint of a smile that seemed to linger at the corners of her lips. "Who are you?" I whispered, feeling foolish yet compelled to ask. No answer came, just the sound of the wind rustling through the trees outside. I walked closer to the portrait, examining it closely. The frame was ornate but cracked, and the wood was beginning to splinter. There was a small inscription at the bottom, barely legible. Lining in, I could make out the name, Eleanor Hartfield. My heart raced. I pulled out my notebook and began to write, feeling an urgency to document everything. Eleanor Hartfield, what had happened to her? What had she loved and lost? Suddenly I heard it again, the faint sound of music, a soft melody that seemed to echo through the walls. My breath caught in my throat. It was the same tune I had heard last night, full of longing and sadness. I glanced around, half expecting to see someone playing, but the room was empty. The sound enveloped me, pulling me toward the piano once more. With a mix of fear and curiosity, I reached for the keys. I hesitated, recalling Daniel's warning about facing fears. But this was different. This felt like a call, a connection to something beyond this world. I pressed down gently, producing a soft, haunting note that resonated through the silence. The music swelled, filling the room as I began to play. The melody flowed from my fingers, each note like a whisper of a long-lost memory. I closed my eyes, allowing myself to be swept away by the music, and suddenly I was no longer alone. In the depths of my mind, I saw flashes of a past life, Alina in a beautiful garden, laughing and twirling with a man whose face I couldn't quite see. The sun shone brightly, illuminating their joy. But then the images shifted. I saw darkness, tears, and a looming sense of loss. My heart ached as I realized the depth of her sorrow. With every note I played, I felt her story unfolding, the music revealing fragments of her life, a love that had been fierce and passionate, a promise that had been broken. I could almost hear her voice, soft and melodic, intertwining with the music, urging me to remember. But then the room grew colder, and the shadows around me deepened. I opened my eyes, and the once familiar parlor felt menacing. The piano seemed to vibrate with an energy that was no longer inviting, it was demanding. "Stop," a voice echoed in my mind, sharp and filled with warning. I jolted back, pulling my hands away from the keys. The music ceased abruptly, replaced by an unsettling silence. My heart raced as I glanced around, expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. But I was alone except for the portrait of Alina, her expression now unreadable. "Why did you stop?" the voice whispered again, softer this time, almost pleading. I swallowed hard, fear coursing through me. "I didn't mean to. You must understand," the voice continued, a haunting echo that resonated deep within me. "The music holds my pain, my love, my loss. To play it is to invite my memories, but to stop, that is to lose them." A chill ran down my spine. Was I truly hearing Alina's voice? Or was it all in my head? I could feel my rational mind battling with the overwhelming sense of connection I had formed with this house and its tragic past. But the shadows around me twisted and morphed, swirling with an energy that felt almost alive. I glanced at the portrait again, and for a fleeting moment I thought I saw her lips move, as if she were trying to speak. The weight of the moment pressed down on me. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Help me remember," the voice replied, resonating through the air. "Help me find peace." I stood frozen, the enormity of her place sinking in. Was I capable of unraveling the threads of her past? Could I face the darkness that surrounded her memories? I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. "I'll help you," I promised, my voice steadier now. "I'll uncover your story." The shadows pulsed, and the room seemed to breathe with newfound energy. I stepped back to the piano, determination flooding my veins. Whatever darkness awaited me, I would face it head-on. I began to play again, the notes spilling from my fingertips, resonating with the echoes of a love that still lingered in the air, begging to be set free. And as I played, I felt Alina's presence envelop me, guiding my hands and whispering her memories through the melody. Together we would unlock the secrets of the past, and perhaps in the process, find the solace we both so desperately sought. The air thickened around me as I continued to play, each note cascading through the room like ripples on a still pond. The melody, infused with Alina's essence, transformed from a mournful echo to a powerful outpouring of emotion. I felt the weight of her memories pressing against me, and for the first time I understood the depths of her sorrow. With each keystroke I glimpsed fragments of her life, vivid and haunting. I saw her in a sun-drenched garden, a vibrant array of flowers surrounding her, as she laughed with a man I recognized as her long-lost love. They danced together, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves, pure joy radiating from them. But just as quickly, the scene shifted. The garden darkened, the flowers wilting and fading. Shadows crept in, and the laughter turned to tears. I could hear Eleanor's voice, now laced with desperation. "Don't leave me," she cried, her tone filled with anguish. My heart ached for her. I felt her pain as if it were my own. The music I played morphed, reflecting her emotions. I could feel the energy in the room shifting, a palpable force swirling around me. The shadows lengthened and danced, creeping along the walls like dark tendrils reaching out. I glanced nervously at the portrait, its gaze fixed on me, silently urging me to continue. "Eleanor," I whispered, pouring my heart into the melody. "What happened to you? What do you want me to know?" As if in response, the room grew colder, the shadows coalescing into a darker shape in the corner of the parlor. It flickered in and out of view, almost like a reflection of something lost. I hesitated, my fingers hovering above the keys, caught between fear and a desire to understand. "Play," the voice urged, softer this time, resonating within me. "You must uncover the truth." I took a deep breath and pressed down on the keys, letting the music guide me. The melody twisted and turned, becoming more complex, filled with a yearning that echoed through the house. Each note resonated with the longing of a love that had been cut short, a plea for connection that reached beyond the grave. Suddenly, the shadow coalesced into a figure, a dark silhouette that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I felt a chill wash over me, and fear gripped my heart. But there was something familiar about it, an undeniable connection to the essence of Eleanor. The figure began to move, swirling around the room as if drawn to the music. It danced in time with my playing, its movements both graceful and sorrowful. I was entranced, unable to look away as the shadow glided closer, and a sense of recognition washed over me. "Is that you?" I gasped, the realization hitting me like a wave. "Is that your love?" The figure paused, and I could almost feel its yearning. The air hummed with emotion, vibrating in harmony with the notes I played. As I continued, the shadow seemed to brighten, taking on a more defined form. A man, his features obscured but the essence unmistakable. Eleanor's voice filled my mind again, a whisper that enveloped me. "He is lost to me, James. We were torn apart by circumstances beyond our control. Help us find each other again." With every note, I felt the weight of her heartbreak, the struggle to hold onto the memories of their love while wrestling with the darkness that threatened to consume her. I played on, the music morphing into a desperate call for reunion. The figure surged forward, enveloping me in a whirlwind of emotion. I could feel the warmth radiating from it, a flicker of hope intertwined with sorrow. The room pulsed with energy, the shadows deepening as the melody reached a crescendo. Suddenly I was pulled into a vision, Eleanor and her love standing together in that same garden, surrounded by flowers, sunlight bathing them in warmth. But then darkness crept in, like a storm cloud casting a shadow over their joy. The scene shifted, and I saw them arguing, anguish etched on their faces. Why must you go? Elena cried, reaching out to him. I have to protect you, he replied, his voice filled with desperation. This is for your own good. Tears streamed down Elena's face as the memory flickered. But I don't want to lose you. The vision shattered like glass, and I found myself back in the parlor, breathless and shaken. The music had faded, replaced by a heavy silence. The shadowy figure lingered in the corner, its form wavering like smoke. What happened? I breathed, my heart racing. Why were you separated? The figure remained still, the air thick with tension. I could feel Elena's presence, a plea woven into the silence. You must play the final notes, she urged. Only then will the truth reveal itself. Gathering my strength, I returned to the piano. My fingers trembled, but I found solace in the familiar keys. I began to play again, letting the melody pour from my heart. This time the notes were filled with urgency, a call to action, a desperate plea to uncover the truth that bound their souls. As I played, the shadows began to swirl around me, and I felt a surge of energy. The room brightened, and for a brief moment the figure stepped closer, its features coming into focus. I could see the longing in its eyes, the pain of separation. Please, I whispered, pouring my soul into the music. Let me help you. And then it happened. The final notes erupted from my fingertips, a crescendo of emotion that echoed through the room. The shadow flickered and surged forward, enveloping me in a whirlwind of light and darkness. In that moment, I understood the true power of music. It was more than just sound. It was a bridge between worlds, a connection to the past, and a balm for the aching heart. And as the last note faded into silence, I knew that the truth would soon be revealed. The shadows shifted, and the room was filled with a blinding light. I felt myself being drawn into the depths of the memories, ready to uncover the secrets that had bound Elena and her love for eternity. Whatever lay ahead, I was prepared to face it. Together, we would find a way to heal the wounds of the past and give their love the closure it so desperately needed. The blinding light enveloped me, and I felt a sensation like being pulled through a tunnel, twisting and turning, until finally I emerged into a new reality. The parlor was gone, replaced by a vibrant garden bursting with colors I had never seen before. The air was fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers, and the sun cast a warm glow over everything. It felt alive with memories, laughter, and the echo of unfulfilled dreams. In the center of this enchanting scene stood Elena, looking as radiant as the sun itself. Her dress flowed around her like petals in a gentle breeze, and her smile illuminated her face. Beside her was the figure I had glimpsed earlier, now more defined, his features sharpened by the warmth of the garden light. I could see the resemblance of a young man filled with a vibrant spirit, and his eyes sparkled with a mix of joy and sorrow. Elena, I gasped, my heart swelling with emotion. Is this a memory? Are we truly here? She turned to me, her eyes shimmering with gratitude and longing. Thank you for bringing us here, she said softly, her voice melodic and full of emotion. This is where our love thrived, where we shared our dreams before everything fell apart. The man beside her stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Elena, an intensity in his eyes that made my heart race. But it is also where we lost everything, he replied, his voice thick with longing. Where I was forced to leave her, to protect her from the darkness that loomed over us. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their shared history. I stepped closer, feeling an overwhelming desire to understand their story fully. What happened? Why were you separated? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Aliner's expression shifted from joy to sorrow, and I felt the garden around us darken slightly. There were forces at play, family obligations, societal expectations. My father wanted to marry me off to someone else, someone powerful. But my heart belonged to him. She pointed toward the man whose name still eluded me. Daniel, he said, a bittersweet smile forming on his lips. I fought to be with her, but the world was against us. I had to leave to keep her safe from the consequences of our love. Tears filled Aliner's eyes, and I felt the pain of their separation echo through the garden. Every moment without him felt like an eternity. I waited, hoping he would return, but life continued, and I was forced to pretend. As she spoke, the garden around us shifted. The vibrant colors began to fade, replaced by shadows creeping in at the edges. I couldn't let go, she continued, her voice trembling. I held onto the music we shared, the dreams we had. But the more I clung to them, the more trapped I became. Your love became a prison, I interjected, trying to grasp the enormity of their emotions. The music, it's what kept you tied to this place. Yes, Daniel replied, stepping closer to Aliner, his hand reaching for hers. The music was our lifeline, a connection to each other. But it also anchored Aliner to her pain, to the memories of our lost future. Aliner nodded, her gaze locked on Daniel. I thought if I played, if I could just hear his music once more, it would bring him back to me. But the more I played, the more I realized I was losing myself to the shadows of the past. Suddenly the garden trembled and dark clouds gathered above us, swirling ominously. The shadows encroached, and I could feel the energy shifting again. What's happening? I shouted, panic rising within me. Daniel turned to me, urgency etched on his face. The darkness is coming to reclaim what it lost. It feeds on our regrets, our sorrow. If we do confront it now, it will swallow us whole. What do I need to do? I asked, feeling the weight of their hopes resting on my shoulders. Play the melody, Aliner urged, her voice rising above the growing chaos. Let it flow through you. We need to face our fears together. The music must be our weapon. With a newfound determination, I nodded. I'll play, but we need to join together. I want to connect with both of you. Aliner and Daniel took a step closer, their hands brushing against mine as I reached for the invisible piano keys in this surreal world. I closed my eyes, channeling all the emotions I had gathered: love, loss, hope, and despair. As I began to play, the garden pulsed with energy, the music transforming the air around us. The shadows writhed, momentarily retreating as the notes danced through the air, resonating with the very essence of their love. I could feel Aliner and Daniel merging with the melody, their voices harmonizing with the music. The darkness recoiled, but it was relentless, surging forward in response to our defiance. It coiled around us, forming tendrils that threatened to snuff out the light. But I played on, pouring every ounce of my strength into the music. Remember, I shouted, urging Aliner and Daniel to focus on their love, to let it guide us. Let the memories be our strength. Aliner's voice joined the melody, a soft, ethereal sound that filled the air with warmth. Daniel, I will always remember the joy we shared. The moments we laughed, the dreams we built together. Daniel's voice emerged next, resonating with power. And I will never forget the fire in your heart, Elena. You are my light, my reason to fight. With each phrase, the music surged, building to a crescendo that felt as if it could shatter the darkness surrounding us. The garden began to respond, blooming anew, vibrant colors cascading through the shadows. The air hummed with life, and I could feel the power of their love enveloping us. The darkness writhed, but it could not withstand the strength of their emotions. Together, I urged, my fingers racing across the imaginary keys, we can break free. As the final notes echoed through the garden, a brilliant light erupted from the center, illuminating everything around us. The shadows shattered like glass, dissipating into the ether as the music surged to its peak. The darkness howled in protest, but the power of their love was undeniable. And in that blinding light, I saw their future unfurling, a vision of joy, laughter, and unbroken connection. The garden glowed with colors more vibrant than I could ever imagine, filled with the promise of a love reclaimed. As the last note faded, the garden returned to its former glory, and the shadows melted away. Elena and Daniel stood before me, their hands entwined, radiant and free. "Thank you," Elena whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. "You've given us the chance to finally let go of our pain." Daniel nodded, his gaze filled with gratitude. "You have set us free, and in turn, you have found your own strength. The music will always connect us, no matter where we are." In that moment, I realized that their love had not only endured, it had transcended the boundaries of life and death, forever entwined in the melody that resonated within my heart. And as I stood there, surrounded by the vibrant garden, I knew that the echoes of their story would forever remain a part of me. "Now," Elena said softly, her voice filled with warmth, "it's time for you to return. But remember, the music will always be there to guide you." As the light enveloped me once more, I felt a profound sense of peace. The shadows were gone, and I was left with the memory of their love, a melody that would resonate within me for all time. I felt myself being drawn back through the swirling light, the warmth of the garden fading as I returned to the parlor. The room was still dim, but the shadows that had once loomed so ominously felt lighter, almost serene. As I opened my eyes, I was once again seated at the old piano, but something had changed. The air hummed with a residual energy, a lingering echo of the love I had just witnessed. The room was quiet, save for the gentle creak of the wooden floorboards beneath me. I placed my fingers on the keys, hesitating for a moment as I took in the dust motes dancing in the soft light streaming through the window. A sense of calm washed over me, a stark contrast to the turmoil I had felt earlier. "Elena, Daniel," I whispered, hoping somehow they could hear me. "Thank you for sharing your story." A soft breeze swept through the parlor, rustling the curtains. In that moment, I could almost feel their presence, a warm embrace that enveloped me, reassuring and protective. The music from the piano still echoed in my mind, a haunting melody that would not let me go. It was a reminder of the depths of love and loss, the intricate tapestry of human emotions woven into every note. But as I settled back into the familiar rhythm of my surroundings, I sensed an urgency stirring within me. The journey I had undertaken with Elena and Daniel was not just about their love, it was a catalyst for my own awakening. I realized that the music had become more than just a connection to their past. It was a bridge to my own future, a reminder of the dreams I had buried beneath the weight of everyday life. I stood up, the resolve swelling within me, and took a few steps away from the piano. The room felt different now, alive with possibility. I turned to look out the window, the sun setting over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the world outside. The colors were breathtaking, a vivid reminder that beauty still existed, even in moments of darkness. As I stared into the distance, I remembered the weight of my own regrets, the dreams I had shelved in favor of practicality, the love I had let slip away. I felt a pull, a whispering urge to seek out what had been lost, to confront my fears just as Elena had faced hers. With a newfound determination, I turned back to the piano. I needed to play again, not just for Elena and Daniel, but for myself. I wanted to breathe life into my own melody, to reclaim the parts of me that had been silenced for too long. I sat back down, my fingers hovering over the keys, the familiar weight of the music beckoning me. I began to play slowly at first, allowing the notes to unfurl like petals opening to the sun. The melody flowed, reflecting the warmth of the setting sun, a tapestry of colors weaving through my mind. Each note was infused with my emotions, longing, hope, and a touch of sadness. As I played, I closed my eyes and let the music guide me. I saw images of my past flash before me, the laughter shared with friends, the love I had let slip through my fingers, the dreams I had once held dear. I felt the presence of Elena and Daniel enveloping me once more, encouraging me to explore the depths of my own heart. The music swelled, becoming a symphony of emotions, rising and falling like the tide. I let the feelings wash over me, embracing the bittersweet memories that shaped who I was. The more I played, the more I felt a sense of liberation, as if the music was breaking down the walls I had built around my heart. Suddenly I was startled by a sound, a soft knock at the door, pulling me out of my reverie. My heart raced as I paused, unsure if the melody had summoned someone or if it was simply a trick of my mind. I took a deep breath and rose from the piano, moving cautiously toward the door. When I opened it, I was greeted by the sight of a familiar face, Maya, my neighbor, her eyes wide with curiosity. "I heard you playing," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "It was beautiful." A smile crept across my face, and I stepped aside to let her in. "Thank you. I've been trying to find my way back to music," I said, a rush of vulnerability flooding through me. "I think I finally understand its power." Maya stepped into the parlor, her gaze drawn to the piano. "There's something magical about this place," she mused, glancing around the room. "I always felt it, even when it was empty." I nodded, recalling the shadows that had once filled the space. "It was haunted," I admitted, my voice low. "But I think it was more about the emotions tied to the music." She turned to me, her expression serious. "What do you mean? Did you say something? Feel something?" I hesitated, unsure how much to share. But the experience had transformed me, and I felt an overwhelming urge to be honest. I played a melody that connected me to a love story, a tragic one. Elena and Daniel were separated by circumstances beyond their control. I witnessed their pain and their longing, and in doing so, I confronted my own fears. Maya listened intently, her eyes shimmering with empathy. That's powerful. It sounds like you've uncovered something deep within yourself. I replied, a surge of gratitude filling my heart. Their story inspired me to confront my own regrets, to reclaim the dreams I thought were lost. A moment of silence hung between us, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. You know, she began hesitantly, I've had my own dreams that I've pushed aside. Maybe we could help each other. Music can be a way to heal, to connect. Her words resonated within me, igniting a spark of hope. Yes, I said, enthusiasm bubbling up. Let's explore that together. Music could be the key to unlocking what we've both hidden away. Maya smiled, and the warmth of her presence felt like a beacon in the darkness. Let's start a journey of our own then, she suggested. We can create a new melody, one that reflects both our stories. I returned to the piano and she joined me, sitting on the bench beside me. Together we began to play, the notes intertwining in a harmonious dance. The music flowed freely, each note echoing our hopes and dreams, a testament to the bonds we were forging. As we played, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. The shadows that had once haunted the parlor faded into the background, replaced by the warmth of our shared experience. We were creating something new, a melody filled with possibility and promise. In that moment, I understood that the music was not just a connection to the past, it was a pathway to the future. And as we continued to play, I knew that Elena and Daniel's love had not only transcended their own story, but had woven itself into the fabric of my own life, guiding me toward healing and renewal. The melody swelled, and I felt the light of hope surrounding us, a reminder that even in the depths of sorrow, there was always a chance to rise again. Together we were crafting a new symphony, one that celebrated life, love, and the unbreakable bonds of the human spirit. Thank you for listening till the end. I hope you were able to relax and will now get a good rest. And don't worry, new stories are already on the way for tomorrow, so don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay connected. Now have a good night. See you in the next episode.